Connection and trust are cornerstones of any mentoring relationship, really any healthy relationship, right? Any healthy human relationship needs connection and trust. And especially when we're working with kids who have experienced complex trauma. That's why I created these meaningful moments cards that we have here. And it's a tool that's designed to spark meaningful conversations that foster trust, nurture emotional growth, and teach those essential life skills. So each deck focuses on the 6 key life skill categories that are already enmeshed in the Stable Moments program. So emotional awareness, self-regulation, responsibility, independence, self-worth, and healthy relationships. And these categories, these life skill categories, are integral to trauma-informed mentoring, but also to help kids with complex trauma be able to heal, grow, build resilience, and go on to make healthy decisions and transitions into adulthood. So today what I want to do is dive into the importance of these cards, the importance of the different life skill categories, and then exactly how can we use these cards. And so I'm going to roll that intro and then we'll dive right in. I'm Rebecca Britt, and this is the Stable Moments podcast. I started this podcast to understand from all perspectives how we can help end the foster care crisis. The overwhelming response was we need to support our local communities. Unwanted, abandoned, orphaned children are the community's responsibility. We must support, guide, love, invest, raise up generations that will nurture, love, and support their own children to end this crisis. So, the purpose of this podcast is to build an army of people that are interested and willing to take responsibility of our foster youth and who are supportive of foster and adoptive families. This is the on-ramp for people who want to get involved but might not know where to start. I want this to be a place where community members feel like they can make a difference, where they feel good enough to make that difference, and believe that they can be a big deal in the life of a child. Thanks for being part of our community, and make sure to join the conversation in the Stable Moments podcast Facebook group. Together, we can end the foster care crisis. All right, so before we dive in, these cards are going to bring up some stuff, right? Because we're talking about our emotions, we're bringing up some stuff about self-regulation, self-emotional awareness, and if while you're using these cards, or while I'm talking about how we're going to use these cards, you're thinking like, oh, it might be a smart thing for me to dive in and do my own work. Well, I just want you to know that last month we released our Heal Yourself, Heal the World program, and that is a program where you can identify your stories and beliefs, you can go back and heal past wounds, and then you can create the life that you were meant to live. Okay, so I always talk about do your work. If you're going to be a good mentor, if you're going to pour into others, you have to have done your own healing. And we always hear do your own work, but what does that look like? What is doing your own work? What is inner child work? What is like practically, Rebecca, what am I supposed to do? And that is what the Heal Yourself, Heal the World program is about. So you can go check that out, stablemoments.com/heal. All right, so let's talk about these meaningful moments cards. They are based in our 6 life skill areas. So, and they're color coded just like our plans of care and our activities and all of that. Now, I will say, so like we've got healthy relationships is purple, independence is orange. There are 9 cards in each, or 9 questions in each category. Conversation cards are awesome. They've been around for a long time now, and you see them like conversation cards for couples. And I even, with my kid, like got a Chick-fil-A kids meal, and there were little cards in there. And I started just asking him these cards, and it was like, who's the best singer in your house or whatever, and I'm like, who is he gonna say is the best singer? And it really actually sparked some neat conversations, and he came up with answers that I didn't think he would come up with at 5 years old. So it was a neat experience for me. But I also know that mentors often, like one of the reasons why I created the activities, the structured activities that we have for the Stable Moments program, is because in the very, 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 very beginning, we didn't have activities. And I felt like mentors felt a little bit like, what am I supposed to do with this kid? And so the activities gave them structure, and then the discussion questions within the activities, made it so, because I was noticing that mentors just did the activity and then they were like, okay, we did it. Check. Everybody's quiet. And so I was like, there was so much rich stuff that just went on in that mentor session. Like, talk about it, like build your relationship. But I noticed that mentors really needed, the discussion questions written out. So each one of our activities has those discussion questions. Okay, so this is just taking it a little bit further, which is like, if we just want to connect on a deeper level and have those conversations with kids and have those conversations help build those life skill areas, then what questions would we ask? And it kind of is nice because it takes the pressure off like a mentor. And these are not just for mentor sessions, right? Like if you're a teacher, if you're a parent, if you're whoever you are, and you'd like to have deeper conversations with kids, these cards are going to be great. Now, you want to try your best to keep your conversations open-ended. That's really important because as far as healthy relationships go, you want the conversation to keep going. So you don't want to ask yes or no questions. Most of these cards are open-ended cards. Some of them will like say, who is one person that, da-da-da-da. And that could be a yes or no answer. Because they could just say Sally or my mom. So you just say like, tell me more about that. Like, tell me more about why she's the one person you trust, or tell me more, you know what I mean? So you just tell me more. The way to get an open-ended question is like, tell me about, describe, so that they have to like say more than one words, right? Okay, so if you want to spark these meaningful conversations, I want to walk you through the 6 life skill areas that these cards are and why they're important, and some sample questions. And then at the end, I will give you some pointers on how you could use them, and also some things to think about to make sure that we're not adding additional pressure onto kids by using a tool, right? Okay, so the first area is emotional awareness, and these are not in any order. But what's nice about the fact that these are in the different life skill categories is if you have a kid that you know could work on self-regulation, or could work on responsibility, or could work on emotional awareness, certainly you could lean more heavily on those category questions. So for emotional awareness, understanding and identifying emotions is the first step towards managing them, right? So we in the Stable Moments program work a lot on having kids understand their own emotions, talking about their emotions, being able to be validated, seen, heard, right? And for kids who have endured trauma, recognizing emotions can be really can be challenging, because a lot of times their emotions just come up on them, like they have triggered responses, right? So that's why one of our questions is, what's a feeling you've had recently that surprised you? And when I was writing these questions, I was like, think to yourself right now, like, what is a feeling that you've had recently that surprised you? I had a hard time answering this, because I'm like, I don't know, that surprised me. I mean, I'm pretty steady Eddie. But the truth is that like, because I'm such a usually like happy, positive, bright side of things person, I am surprised when I am irritable or annoyed or grumpy. Okay. So those times that I'm like, oh my gosh, it is a beautiful day and everything is fine and you are still bah humbug, that surprises me. And what's great about that awareness within me, like if I were to share that, saying this card, is like, if we talked about that further, it's like, because I feel like being happy and joyful is right, which means being grumpy and annoyed or having negative emotions is wrong. Woo, let's talk about that. Well, if I'm in a group setting and I'm the only one, or I think I'm the only one, right? Because a lot of people could be having negative emotions, but these are the things, right? We can go on this long conversation of like, why is that wrong? But why it's so right to talk about is because it's like, no, you might realize that emotion is completely valid and normal and it's okay, and other people are probably feeling the same way. And so naming emotions helps children feel seen and validated and talk about some of these emotions that might spring up and surprise us. And they're important to watch for because they're usually triggers of something bigger underneath. So you can keep the conversation going about what the emotion was, why it was surprising, what they think the reason behind the emotion is. And this really prompts profound emotional awareness. And they might even be able to take that, and the next time they are surprised, be like, oh, I'm surprised by this emotion. Like, they can apply some of this, talking that through, validating themselves, even outside of your conversation. All right, so self-regulation involves managing your emotions, your thoughts, your behaviors in challenging situations. And trauma can disrupt a child's ability to self-regulate. So learning tools like deep breathing and pausing and self-soothing and just acknowledging what you can do when you feel a certain way can be really, really helpful for self-regulation. So one of our questions in our deck is, what's something you can do to help yourself calm down when you're upset? Now, I love this question because rather than us imposing a coping strategy, we are learning more about them. So we could come up with all these coping things. Oh, let's take deep breaths. Let's, breathe in the flower and blow out the candle and whatever. They're fine techniques. But if you ask a kid what's something that you can do to help yourself calm down when you're upset, then you are much likely to get a more tailored solution that they are willing and able to implement. They have much better odds of implementing it because they know what works for them. So think of it for yourself. Again, ask yourself this question. What's something you can do to help yourself calm down when you're upset? And for me, personally, I like to go sit alone, usually outside, or I don't care, in my car, whatever. This is a very typical stressed out mom coping mechanism, right? But I like to take space. So if a kid was able to say, I like to take space, then maybe we wouldn't be sitting there saying oh, do you want to take deep breaths together? It's maybe we respect that and we create a safe space for them to take space. And they'll be like, cool. Not only does it help them self-regulate, but it validates them and it shows them, I care about you. I'm willing to listen to what you think is best for you. Believe that you are the expert of your own life and create an environment that supports your own self-regulation. Okay. So, golden. I love that. Okay. So the next one, responsibility. Responsibility teaches children to take ownership of their actions, develop accountability, understand their impact that they have on others. For children with complex trauma, feeling capable and trusted can rebuild a sense of control and competence with them. So one of our sample questions that we have is, what's something you've done recently that made someone else happy? So I love this because this is starting to develop that sense of purpose and ownership, and you can do things, and not that we are trying to teach kids do what makes everybody else happy. Okay, let's not get it twisted here. But very cool if a kid can say, well, the other day I helped my sister put her shoes on and that made mom happy. That's huge. That's huge. You had a huge sense of responsibility over your sister and you helped, and it helped her and it made mom happy. And what if you weren't there to do that? That's why we take responsibility, right? Is because we have a role in this world. We belong here. We belong here. We make other people happy. We help other people. People look forward to us being there. Okay, so it's huge that if they just brought up something small, I helped my sister put her shoes on, huge, okay? and something that can totally spark further conversation on like responsibility and like, oh, why? That's amazing that like you thought to do that. Like what made you think to do that? Oh, I don't know. I've always taken care of my little sister. I don't know. I just did that. And this with kids with complex trauma, sometimes if they've come from a household where there was neglect, they will be what we call parentified, which they do a lot of things for their siblings, or they do a lot of things for themselves that aren't age appropriate, like at 4 years old, getting themselves dressed and breakfast and packed and ready for school. So maybe they will tell you that they've always done that. And then you could even have a conversation about like, wow, that's a lot of responsibility, right? We're going to have kids on different ends of the spectrum. We're going to have kids that don't have any sense of responsibility, and their parents might complain that they're lazy or that they don't pick up any of their clothes and they don't do any chores, and they don't understand how they impact the rest of the family or the world at all. And then you're going to have the kids that like, man, we wish we could get him to relax. Like he feels like he needs to make sure the lights are off, and he needs to make sure that we're all safe and the doors are locked at night, and he just has this huge sense of responsibility that really is limiting him. So regardless, these cards can help have those conversations. Wow, like how did that make you feel to do something for someone? What is something else you could do? Or did you like that feeling? Do you want to keep that feeling going? What's something else you could do next time to like get that feeling again? Or, wow, that's so much responsibility. That seems like a lot. Does that feel like too much for you? And just having some conversation, like that's a lot. How old are you again? You're 9. Wow, that's a lot for a 9-year-old to take on. Do you feel like it's a lot? Okay. So both sides of the spectrum, it still works. Independence. This involves making choices, solving problems, taking steps towards self-sufficiency. A lot of kids who have experienced trauma may feel a little frozen when it's time to make choices for themselves. A lot of kids want to either do what's right or do what they're supposed to do. So they wait for guidance because they're not sure and they don't want to be wrong. They've been told that they're wrong. Every decision they seem to make is wrong. So they just kind of do whatever they're told. This is one end of the spectrum with independence. So with these kids, we actually have to build up their confidence in making choices for themselves, and show them that they are capable of, and they likely would make the right choice if they were left to decide. So one of the questions we have in the deck is, what's something you've done by yourself that made you feel really grown up? So this is a great way to start, because you can be like, wow, that's amazing that you did that. Oh my gosh, you did that all by yourself. Wow, if you did that, do you think, what else could you do? So you could keep that conversation going on that independence front. This question empowers children to trust their abilities and make decisions, helping them feel more in control of their lives. Their answer to this question specifically shows that they're competent at something. Okay, so then it's like, you can use that in the future too. If they're like, oh, I don't know if I could do that. Well, you told me that you've done this by yourself and that it made you feel really grown up. So what you learn in these sessions with these cards, you can use at other times to remind them how competent they are. All right, we've got self-worth. So self-worth is a big one, right? We could all work on it. So trauma often damages a child's sense of self-worth, right? We do know that if you are neglected or abused from a young age, from as early as 3 months old, like if you're not getting your diaper changed when you're supposed to, a child does not think, my mom doesn't have her stuff together, she shouldn't do this to me. They think, I must not be worth diaper changes. I must not be worth it. I was given this life because I'm bad. Okay, so it is really self-worth issues and feelings of worthlessness are really woven into the fabric of these kids' being. And rebuilding this involves helping them see their unique strengths, their talent, their value, and it is the foundation of confidence and healthy self-expression. So a sample question, which is so easy, but it's like, what's something that you like about yourself? And you might find when you ask this question, I challenge you to go through this deck by yourself first. Like, for the questions that are hard or whatever, like, how would you answer them? Like, just know what it's like to have the spotlight put on you to answer some of these questions. But also, don't feel like you need to have an answer, right? If you're going to go through these with kids, it's like, oh, this is a hard question. Let's think about it. It doesn't need to be like, come on, you can think of one thing that you like about yourself, because for a lot of us, it's difficult. And we've all been kind of taught to like not toot our own horn. Like, or we feel a little bit weird being like, oh, let me tell you what I love about myself. It's this long list of these amazing attributes. Like, for some reason, we've been taught like we shouldn't have a long list. So what's something you like about yourself? If a kid is having a hard time with this, obviously you can offer up something that you like about them. Another thing that you can do with this question is if a kid's having a hard time saying that something that they like about themselves, I would say, well, can we think of something that we like about Murphy, the dog? Can we think of something that we like about your brother, about your teacher, is there something that you like about me? So that they can start to see, like, we usually give more grace to others, right? So we can say like, oh, well, I like that you hang out with me. I like that you're good at baseball. And then it's like, well, you were good at baseball. I like that you're kind. Okay? You might get some real transactional answers here. Like, I like this person because they give me things. That's a really common like trauma response, because they've learned that, get what you can get. Survival is like get what you can get. And so people in a survival situation that give you things are very valuable. And like healthy relationships, deep relationships, stuff like that, like doesn't really exist. People aren't to be trusted. So like, but the guy that's going to come in with candy or whatever, like he's cool. I like him and I like that about him. Just know that like it is fine for any kid to like about somebody that they give them stuff. Like if you had somebody coming into your life handing you candy, or you had a coworker that always brought donuts in, it's like, that's what I like about him. I like that Bob brings donuts, and that's totally fine. You know what? Bob brings donuts because Bob wants to feel good about bringing donuts. So we are allowed to like that about Bob. Everything's just like, yeah, that's an awesome answer. And then try to bring it back to, okay, so what's something you do like that? Or what's something about you, like using your voice or doing music or a sport that you're good at, any strength that they are good at, that they're kind, that they hold the door for people, like whatever. Brainstorm around this one. And the only reason I'm harping on it is because it's surprising sometimes when we sit to compliment ourselves, or we come up with something that we like about ourselves, like the answers are really tough to come by. And if they're tough to come by for us, they're going to be really tough to come by for a kid that's really going to be looking for what's the right answer and doesn't have much, if any, self-worth. So when children do recognize their worth, they're more likely to pursue opportunities and set boundaries and build positive relationships. And this might be a really difficult question for a kid with low or no self-esteem to answer. So anything will do, and just keep coming back to it until they have a whole list. This might be a good one to like we're going to just journal every single time. Maybe like you learn that this is a hard question, and every single time you see this kid, you just start with something new that they like about themselves. Just this one question out of the whole deck is so important. And maybe you're going to journal on it and keep the list. So every week you see the kid, you're just adding to that list. And finally, healthy relationships. So understanding what makes a relationship healthy is crucial for children who may not have consistent positive role models, right? I just talked about how kids can think that like adults don't really follow their word. They don't have integrity. They're not to be trusted. They hurt you. They leave you. They don't care about you. So it's a dog eat dog world out there. I don't really care about relationships, but I will use people to get what I want. Because people have used me and discarded me. Okay? So, this category, healthy relationships, focuses on kindness, empathy, and communication. So, one of the sample questions we have is, how do you know when someone is being a good friend? Teaching children to build and maintain healthy relationships sets the stage for meaningful connection, and it reduces their patterns of isolation or unhealthy attachments. So digging into a concept like being a good friend opens the discussion of what a good friend or a friendship looks like, which is the foundation for healthy relationships. So it's like, how do you know when somebody's being a good friend? Tell me about your friends. What do they do that makes you feel like they're a good friend? What's the difference between a good friend and a bad friend? Okay, and obviously when kids are 5 versus 10 versus 15, these are going to be different answers. But what a good conversation about like what makes a healthy, good friend, okay? So these cards, they create safe spaces, right? They encourage open dialogue. They foster understanding and empathy. When a mentor listens attentively and validates a child's thoughts regardless of what their answers are, it strengthens the bond between them, and it builds the kids' confidence in having some of these answers about themselves. It encourages vulnerability. These questions gently guide children to explore their emotions and their experiences without judgment, helping them feel safe to share, which is really what we want in our mentorship sessions. And it reinforces positive interactions. Mentors can use the cards to celebrate strengths, highlight progress, and encourage self-reflection, which is necessary. So often we can meet with a kid, we can do an activity, we can do a thing, but we don't get deeper, okay? We do this with everyone. Oh my gosh, I was just talking about, I've been going to the same gym for 3 years, and I go to the 5 a.m. or 5:30 class, and same group of women, and we're nice to each other in there, and hey, but I don't know anything about them. And like, boy, I know this sounds a little like cheesy, but I would love to sit in a circle with those ladies and do some of these cards. Like, I'd like to get to know these ladies. So I think building more of a sense of community, even if we see and do things with people all the time, we may not be building that deeper relationship, which can start with asking some of these questions and creating the space, learning about the person, validating them, no judging, all of that good stuff. Okay, so let's talk about the practical ways to use the cards. Like, all right, am I just going to sit down and like answer this, answer this, answer this? No, you're not going to. And I want you to be very cognizant, because the last thing we want to do is create any more trauma. So the reason why Stable Moments is so successful and can even be more, the kid can be more engaged than like in therapy, because it's not so much pressure, right? We're not one-on-one looking across the kid and saying, tell me about your feelings. No, we're hanging out with a kid. We're like, what's up, dude? Like, you're awesome. Let's hang out together. Okay. And that's the energy of these cards too. So if you have a kid that is often like shy, you can tell that they're often just kind of like looking for what you want them to say. I don't know that you should sit down at a table across from each other face to face and work on cards. Just because it can really create a pressure cooker scenario where you're starting to say, like, describe what happens in your body when you feel angry. And the kid's like, I don't know. You know, it's like, and then you're like, okay, well, like, what does this feel like? What? It's just like, ease in. This isn't like a interrogation, right? We don't want to interrogate kids. Do this with a smile. Start with ones that are a little bit easier, like, okay, I know what I would answer for this one, but I want to see what your answer is. What's a chore or a task that you're really good at? And the kid's already going to be smiling because you've already said that you thought of something in your head that you would already answer for this kid. And then they get to answer. Another thing that you can do to take the pressure off, sometimes I had the best discussions with kids when I was a social worker, when we were driving in the car, and it was because they were facing forward, I was facing forward, I was, looking at and focused on the road, and it was just less pressure. It wasn't me sitting in my office asking them questions face to face. It was just like, I'm driving and we're having this conversation. And it's amazing how just that little tweak can help taking the pressure off. So you might do this by taking a walk. Like, okay, we're going to work on some of these questions while we take a walk. Now, let's say you take the first question. This is part of being flexible, right? Take the first question and then you go into some big conversation about whatever. It doesn't even matter. About a time that they felt scared or a time that they were really proud of themselves, and then you start talking about their recitals and their music and how long have they been doing music, and I used to do music, and it's like this really great conversation. Don't do another card. You have won for the day. You are building healthy relationships. You've sparked a conversation. They did what they were supposed to do. That's it. Okay, so you don't need to be like, well, do you want to move on to another card? Do not shut down a conversation so that you can move on to another card. You have to drop the agenda. The cards were just the catalyst, okay? So, take the pressure off. Don't shut down conversation. The point of this is not to do the cards, okay? And the whole point is just let's get to know each other a little bit better. So now that I've said that, you can use this as a warm-up activity. So start each mentoring session by having the child pick a card from their favorite category. So you can tell them about the categories and say which one would they like to do. And then you can sprawl them out and pick a card. And this can help break the ice. So you can use it as that connection time in the Stable Moments mentoring program, or if you're just using this outside of Stable Moments, just use it as an icebreaker with any sessions with any kids. Okay? Random selection. Shuffle the whole deck and let them, or just put them out like this and just have them pick a card at random. I like going through the cards kind of randomly because it's you can tell this one's about responsibility, this one's about emotions, this one's, and you're not just harping on emotional awareness the whole time. You can do a thematic focus though, if you know that your kid may need to work on self-worth, then maybe you can even eliminate the rest of the deck and just take the self-worth cards with you. And that's all you're going to do. And that's a decision you've made as an adult or as a mentor that's what you're going to work on. And just use those ones. Or healthy relationships, self-regulation, any of those, you can just use those cards. Reverse the roles. Let the child ask you questions from the deck. This helps build mutual trust and shows the mentor's willingness to be open as well. I would ask the kid, first of all, I think it's really weird if you are just asking questions. You're what's something you like about yourself? If you could tell yourself one kind thing every day, what would it be? I think it's really good to lead by example here. And so I think that we should take turns asking. So the way you can do this is you can have them answer and then you answer the same question, or you pull a card, they answer that one, they pull the next one. So that's taking turns. Reversing the roles is more they are the only ones asking the questions, which I think that is so cool. And maybe if you have a kid that doesn't feel comfortable, or is that more shy kid, or doesn't, is really looking to you for what they should answer, what's the right answer, I think that you could say, okay, how about you ask me these questions? So they start asking the questions, and then you could show that you're struggling with some of the questions. You could be like, oh, can we work on this one together? Like, what do you think? Or I'm having a really hard time coming up with something I like about myself. Could you help me? Like, what is something I could say that I like about myself? And have the kid help you in that scenario. You can add some creative expression. So after answering a card, you guys could draw or write about it. You could act out the response. This is particularly helpful for children who just express themselves better non-verbally. Journaling. You could provide a journal where the child can write or draw things or their own thoughts after discussing a question. If you have a kid that likes to journal, likes journal prompts, use these as journal prompts. Maybe as the wind down or the transition activity you do every time, maybe you just ask some questions throughout the session, or you ask them to connect, but at the end you use one as a journal prompt and you write a little bit more about that one. If you get stuck, if neither the mentor or the child can answer a card, encourage them to go ask someone. So go find someone, another trusted adult, another volunteer, a program director, and say like, hey, we were just working on these cards and we could not come up with one emotion that we've had lately that surprised us. Like, how would you answer that card? And this really just teaches resourcefulness and normalizes seeking help when they don't know an answer. And like engaging other members of the community to help problem solve. It's really good for independence. And don't forget your follow-up questions. So use the child's answer as a springboard for deeper conversation. Like if they describe a time that they felt proud, ask them, what do you think helped you feel that way? What did it feel like? What does pride feel like? Would you do that again? What's another time that you felt that way? Okay? These are more than just conversation starters. They're a tool for healing and growth. And by focusing on those 6 key life skill areas, the cards help children develop the emotional and the social tools they need to thrive, but also while building that deep, healthy relationship that you guys need to develop. I never want mentors or kids to like not get to know each other or spend time with each other and sit there like, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do, or I don't really know who this person is, right? Like we can get caught up hanging out with people, spending a lot of time and still not getting to know them. So this is just like some structure and some guidance to help you get there. And if you do use these cards, they're available at stablemoments.com/store. Mentors, buy them and keep them in your car. Like if you work at a church, if you work anywhere, like pull them out with coworkers and see like how you would answer these cards. Let's see if we can build a deeper sense of community and relationships by using these cards. And really, like, again, it's not about the cards, but we need a starting space to build those deeper connections. Okay. And I hope that is helpful for you. I know that I've definitely been in situations where I'm like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. Especially at church when they're like, okay, turn around and tell somebody about yourself at church. And you're like, hi, good morning. It's like, give us a question to ask. Give me a prompt so that I don't feel so lost in the sauce. It's weird. Connecting with others like randomly is just we don't do it that well, and that's okay. These cards are here to help you. If you want to work on some of your patterns, some of your own personal growths, identify some of your stories, your beliefs that you have that are limiting you and holding you back, I strongly encourage you to go and check out Heal Yourself, Heal the World. I believe that the single most important thing that you can do for this world is heal yourself. Make sure that you are working on you. By doing your own work, you free up people to be able to do their own work, because we are all very entangled in our dynamics. And right now is a time when we are all just yelling at the world, and we're pointing the finger, and we're very external about everything. And it's really a great opportunity for us to actually point that finger towards ourselves and say, why is this sitting so painfully with me? What about me? What about my stories, my limiting beliefs? What patterns do I have that no longer serve me? And how can I let those go so that I can be spending more of my time showing up the way that I want to show up, and not wanting to burn things down? Or not just limited by some of my beliefs and stories that I've taken on that you needed to in your childhood, but now it's time to let those things go. So that's at stablemoments.com/heal. I am so excited for you guys to have all the tools that you need to heal yourself and to spark meaningful conversations and make connections. You guys are such a big deal. I hope you know it. Until next time.